Hey everyone, and welcome. My name is Marcus. I'm a medium, a coach, and a channeler. And in this video, I'm gonna talk about God. And I know for me, for sure, many times I've asked the question, what is God or who is God? So today I'm gonna share my perspective, what I've learned from exploring spirituality for about 20 years and thinking about it for about 35 years probably. And yeah, this is my perspective. I'm not saying this is the ultimate truth that everyone needs to, take on, but it's my perspective. And yeah, I hope this video is useful for you. Thank you for tuning in. Yeah, so at some point, I have a feeling that most of us ask the question, what is God and who is God? And we have different perspectives on what God is. There's the atheist perspective that there is no God, that this is just physical reality. We have the religious perspective that God is here as a ruler. And we have kind of the perspective that I'm more towards, which is that we are God. We're part of God. We are kind of like a manifestation of God. And it's a perspective that I hear more in the spiritual circle, if you will. And so this is going to be an attempt for me to kind of communicate my view, because it's so big, so it's sometimes hard to think about. And we're sometimes told, like, oh, don't worry about that, like, don't think about that. When we're small kids, we ask our parents, Mom, who's God? It's a difficult thing to talk about sometimes, but nonetheless, I'm going to share my perspective, and we're going to start with, kind of the creation story from my perspective. So imagine a big spherical ocean of that is consciousness, and we're going to call this like a ball of energy. We're going to call this God. There are many different words for it, and I like the word God. I have no problem with it, but I know a lot of people who have maybe not so good experiences with that word. They don't like that word. So another word is source, the source of all that is. And when I say God, I don't mean he, because I think God is everything, so it's also a she, it. But if I say he, it's just for simplicity's sake. But I'm going to use the word God and source in this video because I feel comfortable using those words. So it begins with source has a thought, and the thought is, who am I? In this perspective, God is the all-knowing and is everything. And this one thing, just one thing, is connected with all of itself. But because there's nothing to compare itself to, it doesn't know really who it is. So God asks, who am I? And wants to find that out. And with this thought, then expansion and the creation happens. And that is a manifestation of this intention of trying to figure out, who am I? So this source is, oneness. Everything is one. And it needs a perspective that it can compare itself to. It needs something else. And so if it's oneness, it manifests with this thought, who am I? It manifests duality, separation, two, this or that. And this leads to the creation of this universe, which we here experience in physical reality, but this is the third dimension of 12 dimensions, and 13 being the combination of those. And here we have separation as an illusion. And if I'm talking to another person, I'm going to see that person as another person. I'm not going to feel connected to them. I'm not going to believe they're the same because we have physical reality separating us. So all of these things is a manifestation of that. So we have duality then as a concept. We have hot, cold. We have inside, we have outside, we have light, we have darkness, we have the masculine, we have the feminine, we have love, we have fear, we have day, and we have nights. We have all of these like polarities in our reality, which in my opinion is the illusion, because there is only one, that is God, and we are aspects of that. So in the big fragmentation of God with this initial thought, we have all of these, like, I kind of imagine it as like I can't think of the word right now, but it splits off into many things, and then this branch splits off into many things. And so that's what we are. We are the little, fractals of God, believing that we are not God. But we have God within us, so we are looking at the world through a perspective. So we are one perspective of God, experiencing many other perspectives of God. I think that is the whole experience that we call, physical reality. And everything in the higher dimensions are connected. So physical reality then becomes a playground to experience that which is not true, which is separation. And the purpose of this separation, this illusion of separation, is to understand what we are not. And so when I am looking and thinking that, no, these type of people, I'm not connected to them, these animals, I'm not connected to that, I'm not connected to nature, that is, from my experience, when we have emotions that don't feel very good, because intuitively and just like our body and our soul knows that that is not true. So the emotion tells us that our soul is disagreeing with all of that. Another way of saying this whole creation story, is as fractals of God, we can treat this world, this experience, as a dream. And this is very much along the lines of Alan Watts' kind of perspective, or at least, one of his lectures talks about this, that imagine that you are God. Let's just imagine. And you're almighty powerful. You can do whatever you want in whatever way you want. You can create universes, you can create worlds, you can do anything. And after a while, that gets a bit boring. Like, you can create everything. You create the most beautiful planet. You create the most beautiful symphony. You have the biggest, most amazing art, or whatever. And at some point, you're like, okay, that's cool. Now what? Then you imagine yourself being not God. Okay, I'm going to take away some of my powers, and I'm going to play with this thing called limitation. And I'm going to see what happens. And you imagine yourself, kind of like you almost go to sleep and have a dream that you are a lesser God with lesser powers, and then there's these challenges that arise. And you have to think and you have to work. And in that thinking and in that work, you discover more of who you are. And then that dream, that lifetime maybe plays out, and you return to your God perspective and say, okay, well, that was interesting. I didn't know I was going to experience that in this way. It was quite interesting. And then you dream another lifetime where you have less power. And at this time, it got a bit hairy, like you almost maybe even died, and you felt that was extremely exciting, and there was all of these like, fear, and you got scared, but you managed to get through it because you found bravery and all of these other things. And then returning from that, you okay, but I still know I'm God. I still know that if I die, I'm going to return and be okay. What if I imagine I'm just a small, simple life form? Let's call them humans. We have this potential, but we don't know it. And we forgot our connection to the divine, to God. So let's see what happens then. And I'm not just going to do one life. I'm going to put my essence in all of these different humans and these different animals and all of these different perspectives and kind of create a playground and kind of see what happens. Will I remember that I am God, or will I forget and will I get lost in darkness? Will that take one lifetime, or will that take many lifetimes to remember that I am God? That's a perspective that I very much look through life. And I very much believe in reincarnation, and the fact that we have many lives. And so each life we learn all of these lessons to get closer to the knowing each time that we are God, and we can embody more of that, and then in turn walk as gods on this planet, because we have that potential, and we have the potential to unite heaven with earth. Okay, and then you might ask, okay, cool, let me pretend I agree with this whole notion of God and everything. But what about the darkness then? What about, is there a devil? Is there another source of darkness? From my experience, no, there is no source of darkness. There is only one source. And the darkness comes from disconnect with the one source. In my opinion, there is no such thing as darkness. There's no such thing as a shadow. What we perceive as a shadow is the absence of light. As soon as you turn on the light, there is no such thing as darkness. As soon as we bring in God in us, if we have that source energy, if we have that source essence, there is no darkness. Now, that's a simple concept, and it takes, at least from my experience and perception and perspective, that it is something that we are working with to embody more and more of that, which in turn will remove and just have all of that darkness disappear. And I feel like that is what is going on right now on this planet. The darkness are being highlighted, and therefore it has the capacity to disappear and to be ultimately transformed. Darkness, from my perspective, is not to be destroyed or to be shamed or to be diminished in a sense. It needs to be integrated and understood, because all of the dark things on our planet happened from ignorance and because of fear. And these are the result of disconnect from the light. Connecting to the light and helping people in the dark to connect with their light will solve everything. Because what would happen if I punish someone who does something bad? I don't believe that they would be more inclined to move towards the light. We of course should not accept, tolerate, the crimes of the world. But to only punish, yes, we need to make sure nothing like that ever happens again. So I don't know what the solution is to that. But we need to integrate our own darkness, because we see that in others, and that is being reflected in us. And we see that, and we see part of that in us as well. So when we are working with our darkness, we're also helping our neighbor. And so I feel like that is the whole experiment, this whole playground called physical reality, is to experience this duality, darkness and light. Because ultimately, that is an illusion. It's only light and no light. But because this is a creation of light, of God, of Source, then this perspective alone can have a huge transformation in how we show up in our everyday life and how we ultimately treat others. And so that's a little bit of this, my intention with this video is to have compassion with each other. If we see people suffer, if we see people, maybe they irritate you, they make you angry, understand that these people, they're doing that because they don't feel connected, they don't feel love, and they probably had no experience in the past with the light. How can you show them now a reaction from the light? How can you be more compassionate? Still saying, if something is wrong, still say a very firm no, and be very clear with your boundaries. That, from my experience, is also very important. But we don't do that with judgment and punishment. We do everything we can to stop if there's more ongoing darkness, and at the same time, we show them that there is an alternative to fear, to separation, and to further fragment this reality, because now we are moving into more of a unity consciousness. We're moving into higher states of awareness, and we are connecting and we are coming together more and more. We're starting to experience this oneness, that when we feel that in our heart, that is the love frequency. When we are in a state of love, that is when we're tapping into our ultimate truth, which is oneness. When I am in love with the people around me, then I see them as part of myself, and I see part of myself in them. That is what love is, and that is ultimately oneness. So with that, I'm gonna wrap up this video, and today's coaching question is, if all of this was true, again, this is my perspective, my very humble perspective, and in no way, shape, or form am I trying to convince you of anything. It's just food for thought for you to play around with. And as always, take what resonates and leave what doesn't. But if this would be true, how would you live your life differently? If this was true, how would you live your life differently? How would you show up to yourself? How would you show up to your neighbor and the people around you? Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to learn more, please visit my YouTube channel. And if you're interested at booking a one-on-one session, you can visit my website and learn more about how I work and what I do. Remember, everything is within you. Peace.